In this tutorial, we're going to import our Battlebot and animate him on screen. I'll go to File Import or hit Command-I, and I'll go to the folder with the Battlebot TIFF sequence. I'll select one of the frames. I'll choose TIFF sequence and force alphabetical order and click Open, and then click OK. I'm going to drag it onto my screen. Now, it has to pass back and forth from left to right, right to left on our composition window 3 different times at 3 different sizes. So we're going to start with the Battlebot, and let's place it inside the middle of the composition. And as we did with the planets, we're going to right-click on it in the Project tab. We're going to go to Interpret Footage Main, and let's give this 20 loops to start. And I'll stretch it out for the duration of the timeline. Now I want this to be smaller because it's going to come from the left-hand side and go across to the right. So the first thing I'll do is I'll hit S on the keyboard, and I'm going to start to scale this down, but I'm going to flip it first. My character has to be pointing in the other direction. So I'll unlock the chain link between the X and the Y scale, and I'll put a minus sign in front of the first number 100, which is the X-axis, and when I hit return it flips it over. I'm going to lock that again. Now I'm going to change the scale of this with my left mouse dragging to the left, and I want this to be kind of small because it's going to appear to be coming gradually closer to us by going back and forth across the screen. So I'm going to make my model about 40%, and I'm going to place it over on the left-hand side. And at the beginning of the timeline, I'm going to now hit P for position, and I'll drop the first keyframe. Now I want this to go across the screen in a time frame of 10 seconds. So I'm going to click in the upper left-hand corner of the timeline, and I'm selecting all the zeros. And I'm going to hit 1 and 3 zeros, which is the equivalent of 10 seconds. And now I'm going to drag it across to the other side. So if I was to put my playback head back at the beginning of the time and tap my space bar, my character is going to fly across the screen, going off the right-hand side. Now that I have him animated going across the screen once, I'm going to cut the clip there. So with the clip selected, I'm going to hold down the Option key and hit the close bracket near the letter P so that I have a visual reference of where it begins and ends. Now I want to have a 2-second interval before the next one passes through the other way. So I'm going to click on my time sequence once again, and I'll put in 1200, and I'll hit return. Now we're going to drag another copy of the robot onto our comp window. And this one now is going to be going from the right-hand side over to the left. But I'd like it to be a little bit smaller in scale, so I'll hit S on the keyboard, and maybe I'll drop this scale down to about, maybe 70%. This is all pretty subjective when you do your own, but we want to have 3 different sizes so that the last pass will be the largest coming from left to right. I'll cut my clip at the 12 seconds that I've left my playback head by holding down the Option key and hitting the open bracket. And there now we've got that 2-second interval in between. Now I want this to make a faster pass because the closer it is, the faster it will go by. So this is going to be a 5-second duration. So I'll click back in my time code and I'll make that 1700. And I'll clip it using the Option and the close bracket. Now I want to drop my first keyframe though at the beginning of this, so I'll either shift and snap the clip back to the 12-second beginning of the clip, or I can also, if I wanted to, I could hit I on the keyboard with the clip selected, and that will also place your playback head right at the beginning of that selected clip. I'll hit P for position, drop the first keyframe, And now I'm going to go to the end of the clip and drag it across the screen. Now I could shift and snap it if I chose, or I could hit O for out. And that would also put my playback head precisely at the end of that clip. And I'll click on it and then hit my shift and drag it across the screen. So if we were to preview what we've done so far, it would look something like this. Now we need to have the final entrance of our robot coming from the left-hand side, larger, and resting on the left-hand side of our comp so it can do battle with the bad robot. So I'm going to have a 2-second interval between the second 5-second duration clip and the last one, which will come from the left. So I'll put my playback head at the end of the 5-second clip, which would be 1700. I'll make it 1900, and I'll drag my robot onto screen one more time, and I'll option and hit the open bracket to clip it so it begins at the 19-second interval. Now this one once again has to be flipped over, so I'm going to hit S on the keyboard. I'll unlock the aspect ratio for scale. I'll put a minus sign in front of the 100 and hit return, and I'll lock it down again. And then I'll drag it off the left-hand side. Now the scale of this is probably pretty good the way it is, so I'm going to leave it that way, and I'll just move it off screen like so. And because I'm at the beginning of the clip, I can hit P for position, and I'll drop the first keyframe. Now he's going to take 3 seconds to come in on screen. So I'm going to go to the time code in the left-hand corner of the timeline, and I'm going to make it 2100. And I'll drag my robot close to the center, vertical center of my document. And I'm going to save. Now, all the clips are some value of blue when you first introduce them in After Effects. And I'd like the robot clips to be a little bit more pronounced. So I'm going to shift select them. And then if I click on one of the boxes next to the numbers of the layers, with my left mouse I can choose a color. Now it's a little bit more distinct.